All right, you're Barack Obama, and you're looking at the disarray within the Republican Party, and Herman Cain's still in there, and agree or disagree whether he should be there, that it's a great distraction that he is there, and you're looking at the improving numbers you're seeing and the sudden ADP report with the economy showing an unexpected surge in private sector jobs, and you're thinking to yourself, Mr. President Self, I think I could slide in here again for another 4 years. Or can you? We've got Jonathan Hoenig joining us, Lizzie McDonald, and Richard Brodsky. Richard, what do you think?
I think it's good news for the president in political terms, but the Republicans are sort of moving away from the center, moving away from the average voter. The Republican primary electorate is sort of off in a corner. That is, I think, strategically more important than the peccadillos of any individual candidate.
We always talk about distractions, right, Lizzie?
Yeah.
Is this such a distraction that, let's say he does drop out of the race, Republicans then focus eventually on whoever the nominee ultimately is, and that's what ultimately matters, none of this stuff right now?
I think that, I think with Herman Cain, he's so different from other candidates who had, sexual, malfeasance or peccadillos. Alleged, right. Gary Hart, for example. But, with Herman Cain, it's different because he actually has a plan. Gary Hart was, Walter Mondale said, where's the beef to him? Because he had no plan. Same with John. I didn't even know what John Edwards' plan was. But the president, I think, is dealing with very negative approval ratings, worse than Carter at this point in Carter's presidency, certainly worse than Ford and Truman. Truman won re-election by attacking a do-nothing Congress. That's a template that the President Obama is doing right now, attacking a do-nothing Congress. I don't think it plays. I think it wears thin.
Jonathan, it's remarkable when you look at the president's numbers. I mean, I guess he hit a low of 43%. That's like Carter numbers. But in all these matchups, in the worst of conditions, he's very competitive, beats most of them, I guess, save, well, today Gingrich now beats him and Mitt Romney. But not by much. So if this is the worst, if that's the argument, if this is the worst, that's not too bad for him, is it?
Although, Neil, I don't know if this is the worst. I mean, Herman Cain was a great opportunity, in my estimation, from the GOP because he was the outsider. He was the Ross Perot figure, if you would, here to challenge the Washington establishment, which we know the electorate is very disappointed at. Unfortunately, I think after watching her interview, you can't help but wonder if Cain's credibility is compromised by this, and by extension the Republicans as well. It's never the affair. Newt, as you pointed out, has had affairs. It's always the cover-up, and unfortunately, I don't think Cain thus far has really made the case that he's the most credible man for the job.
What Cain was is the flavor of the month that isn't Mitt Romney. And if you want to handicap a race in big terms, what you're really learning is the Republican Party is deeply uncomfortable with Mitt Romney, and if they're uncomfortable with him, I just suspect that the president will be able to make a very, very solid case against Mitt Romney in ways that keep the Republican establishment afraid. There is a theory, that the strategy here is to keep anybody from getting a majority at the Republican convention and try to bring in a savior at the last minute, because none of these candidates right now look like they can beat Barack Obama.
What do you think, Liz?
Well, I think that the president, what's going to hang him up in his re-election are his own words. He has been so relentlessly downbeat about America. He's been so negative and pessimistic about the American dream and American entrepreneurialism. He has, criticized Americans for lacking imagination, criticized CEOs for not being competitive about. There is a string of negative
his friend. I'm saying, I'm not coming out either side. I'm just saying the trend is his friend. The numbers are his friend. They're going in his direction. You're right. Nothing gangbuster. But the
trend in joblessness
so, Johnny,
won't be
that's all I'm looking at. What do you think?
Well, I don't, Neil, I got to tell you, listen, I'm happy to see the market up today, although I just don't think that the trend, at least when it comes to the economy, is thus far in the president's favor, which is why, whether it's
No, I'm not
Romney,
saying in his favor. I'm just saying, you're right. I don't think it's going to get back to 7.5% unemployment. I think it will be higher than when he took office, normally an anathema to a president seeking re-election. This time, I hate to always say that it will be different, but I think it will insofar as he'll have a year to say that it's steadily been inching along better. Give me another 4 years.
If it continues to do so, Neil, thus far the economy has yet to show really
well, you know what? 4 years
any indication
4 more
that
years
it's on the
of
recovery
what?
track.
To do what?
Beat somebody with nobody. And the great message of the Republican mess is they got nobody right now.
But you can remember when they said that about Bill Clinton as the likely nominee in '92, that he was a nobody. Now, we could talk about Ross Perot, but the fact of the matter is, I remember quite well the dismissive view of Bill Clinton.
I'm not dismissing anybody. I'm saying right now, if it's Herman Cain or it's Mitt Romney or it's Rick Perry, fair enough. But when you have nobody,
but Bill Clinton is an inapt. I'm sorry, it's not a good analogy because Bill Clinton.
So you're disagreeing with me?
No, Bill Clinton changed course. Bill Clinton changed tack.
Fair enough,
tack.
fair
He
enough.
tacked to the center.
Maybe
President's not doing that.
maybe that's just one indication of the president's disapproval ratings is that the unnamed Republican candidate tends to outpoll the current president at this point.
There's always a person. There's a person that eventually runs against that.
there's a lot of wishful thinking in this conversation by people who have positions, and they're entitled to them. If you want to be a clean, clinical analysis of this trend is headed in Barack Obama's favor, and
so far.
It's recently so far.
Very good. Guys, thank you all very, very much. Lizzie, enjoyed your final appearance here.